I'd like to start by introducing Dr. Iris Ponte. Her pronouns are she, her, hers. She's the director and a classroom teacher at the Henry Frost Children's Program and is also an adjunct faculty member of the Graduate School of Education at Lesley. Iris was also proudly recognized as an exchange emerging leader in 2015. As a former Fulbright Scholar, Dr. Ponte has expertise in cross-cultural issues in education in the United States, the United Kingdom, Taiwan, China, Japan, and Newfoundland. Iris is a practitioner and a scholar shaping perspectives on anti-bias practice and early childhood education as a whole, and we are lucky to learn with her tonight. The next speaker I'd like to introduce is Noah Grenier. Noah uses they, them pronouns and is a freelance children's book illustrator and 2018 graduate from the illustration BFA program at Lesley University College of Art and Design. Influenced by queer futurism, magical realism, dreams, and the subconscious, Noah's work bridges themes of gender, sexuality, and mental health and envisions a more equitable future. Their art has been published in children's books, middle grade novels, medical texts, and activist campaigns. And Claire Kaminsky, who uses she, her pronouns, is a preschool teacher at the Henry Frost Children's Program. Over the past 12 years, she has taught in both public and private settings in Oxford, England, and Massachusetts. Over the years, she has developed a passion for the Reggio Emilia approach, specifically prioritizing emergent curriculum and teaching as a guide and an observer. Claire is a strong advocate for human rights and equity in and out of the classroom. And I just want to thank all of you so much for being here tonight to share your incredible work.
We are so excited to be here with all of you and so honored to share this presentation. I know momentarily the slide deck will be appearing, but I just wanted to let you know this presentation is called Leading with an Equity Lens, Exploring She, He, They in a Case Study from the Classroom. And we're so thankful to Lesley University for making this virtual presentation possible and accessible to all this evening. I'm here with my colleagues that you just met, Claire Kaminsky, co-teacher at the Henry Frost Children's Program in Belmont, and Noah Grenier, illustrator and author. We're also so thankful to all of you for finding time amidst the chaos in all of our lives to join us this afternoon. Please feel free to do what you need to do during this presentation and take breaks and stretch. And one of the good things about virtual is that you can do you during this time. Also, we invite you to use the comment box, as Dana mentioned, to communicate with us questions that we can answer at the end of our presentation. You can advance the slide for Claire.
Great. Thank you. So, hi everyone. I wish I could see all your faces, especially for this next activity. So we all have different ways of being. And one way that we've talked about this even at school with kids and teachers, we are coming here tonight with our own histories, our own biases, our own experiences. And this diversity can really help us connect in a lot of different ways. As sort of an icebreaker, we'd like you to watch this video and think about a few things. Which child do you most identify with? And if you could play it, it's a little bit small, but I hope you can see these three friends dancing. Now imagine some pretty awesome music going with the beats here. We have child on the left, we have child in the middle, and child on the right. Are you someone that can let loose? Are you someone that can just go with the beats? Are you someone who's a little bit more cautious? Do you prefer not to be in the spotlight, but maybe trying to be involved? Are you worried about other people seeing you, or you just let it all hang out and do you? Tonight, two of your presenters are the middle child, and one of your presenters is the right child. And are wondering if by the end of this, you could probably figure it out. But just as an icebreaker to think about, we all come here from different places with different energies and different experiences, and we hope we can use that to our advantage tonight. Our presentation will give you opportunities to interact and be heard, and we want to hear you. We want to know what you're thinking and experiencing, especially based on this topic. Please feel free to use that comment bar through the presentation, talk with each other, talk with us. Questions and comments will be at the end. To start off, we'd like you to think of a moment in your childhood, way back when you were, bustling in and out of hallways. And was there a time that as a young child you felt treated unfairly? What happened to you? Who was around? Who helped or who didn't help? What did you wish for to happen in that moment when you felt like something was being done unfairly to you or you were being mistreated? Our hope in this presentation is to reflect upon ways that we can reach all children, but especially those children who may feel left behind or who may feel misrepresented. When teaching with an equity lens, we're hopeful that we can reach all.
So today our outline for our presentation is as follows. We're going to start with a framework for leading with an equity lens. Within that section, we'll discuss what do equity leaders need to do in their programs, how do you engage teachers in equity work, and how do you engage families in equity work. Then we'll move with Claire to discussing a case study from our classroom at Henry Frost, He, She, They, and the I Am poster project, and we hope that inspires you in your daily work with children. And then finally with Noah, we will explore professional and personal inspiration about advocacy, action, and change. Now, this webinar, we can't ignore the fact that it's happening at a very pivotal moment in our country. And for this reason, I really want to take a moment to start with some remarks from the NAEYC May 30th Advancing Equity in Early Childhood's position statement. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you take some time after this presentation to check it out online. It states that our goal in early education is to nurture a more diverse and inclusive generation of young children who thrive through their experience of equitable learning opportunities in early learning programs. We aim for each child, quote unquote, to express comfort and joy with human diversity and to increasingly recognize injustice and to have the will and skills to act against prejudice. And I know if you're feeling like me, we find ourselves today pressing for this same expectation for every single adult in our nation today. Our goals cannot be achieved without recognizing and dismantling the systems of bias that provide privilege to some and injustice to others. And that means committing individually and collectively again and again to reflect and grapple with the racism in ourselves, in our organizations, and in our society. Every single one of us has a role to play. As early childhood educators, administrators, faculty, students, advocates, and parents, we are each in a position where we can act and address the trauma our children are experiencing at the hands of racism, which is apparent to us every single day in the coronavirus's disproportionate impact, in the police response to protests, in the weaponizing of white privilege in our parks and in our streets, and especially in the death of George Floyd and many other Black Americans. In this presentation, we hope to provide some concrete strategies for advancing equity in all of your programs. And if you're not in a program yet, that you carry this with you when you do begin in one or in leading one. We need to pause and consider, what does the equity statement from NAEYC mean for us as early childhood educators? To me, it means that we need to be intentional, we need to be facilitative, and we need to be strategic. Every single decision we make has the potential to impact equity in our program. We do this by keeping the long-term social justice vision and mission in the foreground while managing those day-to-day immediate issues. Facilitative leadership involves all of the stakeholders sharing power and responsibility to meeting our organization's goals. The leader will develop collaborative partnerships with staff and families so that there is a collective voice in the planning, decision-making, implementation of our equity missions. We need to integrate an equity and anti-bias stance into all aspects of our organization. Social justice work is not something we are adding on. It is part of what we are already doing, and it's deep in our program's culture, policies, and curriculum, practices, and every interaction we make. We will do this by reading and analyzing our program's context, because all of our programs are different, and therefore our social justice priorities need to be different. So each and every one of us needs to identify the strengths and resources, challenges and barriers, allies and gatekeepers that will shape the opportunities and obstacles that face our work every day. This data gathering informs leaders' priorities, goals, and the roadmap of the strategies needed for the shift towards greater equity. So on the next slide, we begin. What do equity leaders need to do then? Now, this framework for equity work is based on an upcoming article that has not been published yet by Debbie Lakinen, John Nemo, and Louise Derman-Sparks. We're going to look at now together strategies for leaders working with teachers and families. So we're going to start with what equity leaders need to do. And the first area is to create a culture of creativity, risk-taking, and co-learning. This means we need to build programs where diversity and equity can live. It rests on program culture that nurtures creativity, risk-taking, and learning. The goal is to create a space where everyone feels that they can offer their perspectives, take risks, make mistakes, and contribute at their own pace. This requires everyone learning from and with each other. We do this by making time for staff and families to develop connections and form deep, trusting relationships. It also creates a climate where conflict and dissonance are viewed as opportunities for growth. Second, we need to engage teachers, staff, and yourself in reflection and education. Effective change towards equity rests on people being reflective about their own attitudes, knowledge, practices, histories, and continuing to expand their understanding of equity issues. Create the time, space, and support so everyone can take steps in their own equity and diversity journeys. Be humble, be open to learn, and peel that metaphorical onion. You have to peel back those layers to reveal the inner core of both our own strengths and our own bias. We need to form an equity inclusion team in our programs, a team that oversees equity initiatives and ensures commitment, accountability, and coordination with equity activities. It's not just the director of the program's focus. The team should include stakeholder representatives, for example, staff, families, advisory boards, and others who have direct involvement in the program, who are committed to the equity mission and can act as conduits for these efforts into various constituencies. Ensure that the team does not become distracted or diverted into activities such as multicultural potluck dinners, which are helpful as community builders, but does not address underlying inequities in your system. The fourth area is to cultivate commitment through, you want to go back to number 4, that's 8. Cultivate commitment through a mission statement. Back again to number 4. That slide for, there you go. Cultivate a commitment through a mission statement. Make your equity commitment transparent by explicitly making it a part of your program's mission statement. I can't emphasize this enough. A lot of programs sit on their mission statement for a really long time. They should be revisited annually. Engage program staff, teachers, and families in developing reviews annually to make sure that they are held accountable, and seek feedback from others directly invested in your program. Assess progress. Ongoing program assessment includes progress towards annual equity goals, observation in classrooms, documentation, surveys, focus groups with staff, families, and other stakeholders will reflect and influence your consistent strategic planning in your program. 6, budget for equity work. Equity work must be an explicit priority in budget lines. And you need to make sure there's funding available for professional development, recruitment, and identify specific fundraising projects that are related to your equity strategic plan. For example, make sure that your teachers have access to children's book collections that reflect all backgrounds and languages spoken by the families in their community and equally represent their backgrounds. And 7, create equitable policies and staff and family handbooks. Policies and procedures communicate the values and goals of your program. They should explicitly reflect your equity commitment. For example, program leaders can address the inequitable impact of disciplinary and exclusionary practices that affect children of color and boys by requiring positive alternatives and ongoing assessment of teachers' disciplinary and exclusionary practices. 8, be present in the community. Leaders in programs have a vantage point from which to learn about and be active and valued in the community surrounding their program. Specifically, include outreach to community elders and advocacy organizations representing groups that are traditionally marginalized in your society and schools. Community engagement enables program leaders to leverage resources to support the equity mission. In turn, school leaders can join in community efforts for social justice and be a role model for families and staff. Now let's switch to what leaders can do to engage teachers and staff in equity work. You can advance the slide. First, recruit and retain staff to be committed to equity and anti-bias education. To do this, you need to be strategic in your outreach to recruit teachers and staff, reflecting the communities of the children and families you serve to increase diversity. Mentor leadership development to build diversity in administrative roles. Make your commitment to equity work visible in all of your recruiting documents and PR materials. Your website, flyers, and teaching position descriptions should argue why having a diverse population is a key element of your program's goals. Include questions about equity and anti-bias education in your interview protocols when you hire. Implement retention strategies that ensure that all of your staff feel included, visible, and engaged in decision-making. Next, facilitate collaboration and engage staff in critical thinking during staff meetings and professional development. Arrange staff work schedules to facilitate relationship building and collaboration through curriculum planning, team teaching, and common professional development experiences. During the staff meeting, facilitate courageous conversations among teachers and staff about their own social identities and about planning, implementation, and assessment of anti-bias materials, environments, and curricula experiences. These activities, for example, could include discussing your equity statement as a community, reviewing children's books for anti-bias issues, sharing teachers' documentation of current anti-bias dilemmas in their classrooms, which we're going to do today, and use protocols to help facilitate the conversation between colleagues. 3, supervise and coach staff in anti-bias work. As part of your annual individual professional development goals, teachers and staff should identify specific anti-bias education goals and be accountable for meeting equity expectations in their classrooms. Proactively and intentionally ensure that teachers have the materials that they need to support anti-bias activities with children. For example, persona dolls pictured here, books, block accessories, puzzles that represent families in the program, as well as the visibility of diversity in the children's larger community. 4th, and this is one of the hardest ones, is distributing leadership. Empower emerging equity leaders within your staff and families to take on responsibility for developing and implementing specific social justice projects. For example, have them take the lead in creating an anti-bias library for the school or developing a professional development experience for the community. This is how you can enact facilitative leadership. Finally, in this final section, how do you include families in your programs to take on this work? While classroom teachers typically have the most direct and intense relationships with families, the program leader has important responsibilities in ensuring the inclusion of all families in a program's equity mission and implementation. First, it's our responsibility to set the program climate. We have to set the tone, provide opportunities for families and staff to socialize, dialogue, and learn together in ways that give everybody a voice. Through your everyday interactions with families, model a funds of knowledge approach in which you learn from families about their own strengths, knowledge, and expertise in their children that they come with to school from their communities and families. 2, communicate explicitly about equity and anti-bias goals of your program. Provide opportunities for teachers and families to learn together about anti-bias education, such as teachers and families sharing their own identity stories, favorite childhood memories, and let families know about your program's anti-bias education with children, such as conversations with children, share them, new children's books in your program, activities happening in the classroom, make them visible, and also give ongoing professional development efforts to all. And finally, reach out to your families. Take the initiative to reach out, especially to those who have traditionally been marginalized by school environments. Be sure that your environments reflect cultural diversity and explicitly welcomes families. Take the time to meet with families in their communities and learn from them about what equity issues they confront every single day and what program policies in your program need to be changed. Now I'm going to pass over to Claire. That is an actual example from our school.
Hi. In this next part of the presentation, we'd like to share with you a case study from our preschool in Belmont, Massachusetts. I'm a teacher in this program, and I feel super fortunate to be able to speak about this curriculum and design. We believe that this example demonstrates firsthand how in our programs we can advance equity and diversity in our work, and we'd like to share that. At our school, teachers started to notice children asking questions about their bodies, their clothing, and their hair. For example, in the bathroom during toileting, children were saying, "You are a boy because you have a penis, and I'm a girl because I have a vagina. Why is Peter wearing a dress? He's a boy. Boys have short hair, girls have long hair. I like princesses like Elsa. She wears a dress." These conversations were constant and ongoing, especially as Halloween was approaching and children started to discuss what types of costumes they were going to wear. More conversations about gender and clothing occurred. Some children presented flexible about this. Everyone can wear whatever they want. They also presented inflexible. Don't wear that, it's for girls. Teachers started to consider where the curriculum could go next so we could unpackage some of these conversations. So we started to do some research on developmentally appropriate books for preschool, materials to bring to light gender variation, pronoun usage, and anti-bias curriculum in early education settings. We realized there was a lot at our fingertips and we could contributes to this type of emergent curriculum. But we also found that this type of learning can happen on a daily basis throughout the year and doesn't have to be a focused emergent curriculum study. The thread can be ongoing. Next slide, please. So this next space about managing tender topics is something that makes people feel uncomfortable sometimes and often can give a lot of pushback, and then we don't go after the topics that are difficult. So this was one area that we wanted to focus on. Like we discussed in Iris's rubric earlier, it was critical far before this exploration of identity that the climate in our program was one of openness, understanding, and curiosity. Our program is constantly working hard to create this deep connection with families and this trust so that we can understand and explore with them, and that we make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We do not believe that this curriculum would have gone as well as it did without this foundation. Second, we are constantly communicating explicitly about our equity and anti-bias goals at school. We let our families know about our program Anti-Bias Education with Children, such as how we have conversations with children, new children's books we are bringing in, activities that happen in the classroom, and ongoing professional development efforts. There were many emails, many meetings, and in-person conversations throughout the school year, specifically during and specifically throughout this identity curriculum. And we also, like Iris was talking about, we reached out to the families, especially if we were not hearing from them. We were a little bit nervous about exploring this topic, and our school had never done something like this so deeply in a topic that might be uncomfortable, but we thought it was important, and we were careful to connect with every family in person to show and to share about their own child's experience and their experiences. We talked a little bit about this, finding the third space and how you manage this in your program. In some cases, in various schools, families might say something like, this is against our religion, or aren't they too young? Or is this developmentally appropriate? There are going to be times when we don't agree as educators, as parents, as families, parts of programs. What do we do then? So we need a strategy. We need to learn from each other and compromise and consider our options. Listen and learn, accept mistakes, and try to compromise. It's okay to disagree with the curriculum in any given school. Children get to make their own choices, and families have different ways to think about that choice. But in the end, even though people have different views on this, the school gets to decide. Next slide, please. At our school, we turn to anti-bias books on gender for information on how to prepare our curriculum to be developmentally appropriate. The most helpful book was this one by Derman, Sparks, and Edwards, The Anti-Bias Education for Young Children and Ourselves. In this book, they developed a framework of strategies that can be applied to any curriculum about gender. So if you're interested, it can be found in the gender chapter. And I think if you click forward, they might be able to read these as I go through. Yes. So these are the framework strategies. So children will express their ideas and positive feelings about their gender identity and be comfortable with their own way of expressing gender. Children, regardless of gender identity, will participate in a wide range of activities necessary for their full cognitive, social, and emotional and physical development. Children will have vocabulary for and ease in talking about the great diversity in appearance, emotional expressiveness, and behavior of children across the spectrum of gender expression. Children will recognize stereotypical ideas and images and even hurtful behaviors directed at their own or others' gendered identities. They will know that it is not fair to treat people hurtfully because of who they are. Children will recognize and respect the power each person has, including themselves, to determine their own gender identity and say who they are, regardless of adult interpretations of their bodies. And lastly, children will practice those skills for supporting gender identity diversity in their interactions with their own peers and with adults. So next slide, please. Our teaching team completed our preparations and we informed parents about this new area of inquiry. Individual conversations with families happened at drop-off, pickups, and community-wide emails were sent out to all, including caregivers, with the parents' permission about our upcoming curriculum. Teachers work to find these materials to begin the conversations in the classrooms. So we pulled together choices, all the rainbow colors. We made sure our safe space sign was well placed. A variety of books were placed in the library and reviewed. Baby dolls were set with a higher variety of clothing added to dramatic play. We purchased new dolls from Mattel that were more gender ambiguous. Children participated in a wide range of free play opportunities around the classroom, including hanging up pride flags, decorating the classroom, working with all the colors with clips, links, measuring cups, mini pipes. These were some of the free play ways with rainbow colors. With all this, we recognize that outside of focusing on equity and anti-bias curriculum for an emergent topic, we can have this thread all year long within and throughout other topics. Next slide, please. So some opportunities were experienced through play and other experiences were more teacher guided. So for example, we read about Harvey Milk. We designed pride flags and held a pride march on our street. We sang with our music teacher, Teacher Alistair, finding music where messages were about equity, were about diversity, and those lyrics had inclusion written right in the title. This was key to reaching all of our learners. We highly recommend, and at the end we'll have a little shout out for mockmusic.com. Alistair Mook is a songwriter, and his newest album, Be a Pain, is a joyful musical rallying cry for young and old leaders in these turbulent times. The songs inspire kids to move the ball forward and to make change. Highly recommend his music for any program. We explored gender with dramatic play settings where a baby was born right in front of us at first circle. We were able to discuss how this baby was given a gender at birth, and as their brain develops, they have a chosen gender. We read a book, I Am Jazz, to support understanding different pronouns and learn about the experiences of transgendered people. Children cut out various pronoun buttons, and then they got to select their own pronoun buttons after learning what a pronoun is. To show the range of gender identity, we explored the different symbols associated with the various identities. Gender identity symbols with dot markers showing the spectrum was a big hit. We explored how animals have sexes and how some behaviors are linked to female and male with our naturalist. I didn't know that worms have female and male body parts. We read It Feels Good to Be Yourself, illustrated by Noah Greenye. We learned that Noah lives in Boston when we turned to the end of the book. So we wrote to them, hoping that they would write us back, but we weren't sure it was going to happen. The teachers noticed that the letter I was coming up on the ABC wall. So teachers decided to use the letter study as a launching point for a project called I Am Posters. Next slide, please. The I Am Poster project was a celebration of our individuality, identities, and community. Children were invited to make a list with teachers of everything they wanted to tell their community about themselves. For example, some children explained, I am a brother, I am a hockey player, I am a pasta eater, and I am a friend. Children were also invited to choose their preferred gender. Children worked hard to have an icon alongside typed words to glue and display on their poster. The posters were even sent home so parents could participate. Then at our holiday gathering, families were invited to our I Am Poster community show. Everyone had fun learning new things about our students and staff, finding connections and asking questions. Soon after our I Am Poster celebration, to our surprise, we received a response from illustrator author Noah Greenye. The children were thrilled. For a day, Noah came to our school and read their book, It Feels Good to Be Yourself. And we participated in a watercoloring tutorial with Noah. Children had the opportunity to meet and talk with Noah and explore what it was like to be an author and illustrator. Noah was very moved by their experience with us. Noah's feedback is as follows. I think children are born open-minded, and adults often teach them to be closed-minded, sometimes without consciously realizing it. It makes me really happy to see educators actively working to make their classrooms as inclusive as possible and teach kids about things like gender identity. I think children often have an instinctive self that gender is fluid. At least in my experience, gender fluidity as a concept is easier for children to understand, but harder for adults because of the way we've been socially conditioned. I really wish I had been able to learn words like cis and trans at a young age. It would have saved me so much trouble. I didn't learn those words until I was 13. It was so good to see kids growing up with an understanding and awareness of gender diversity. I really illustrated It Feels Good to Be Yourself because it is a book I wish I could give to my younger self, which like makes me cry. That is so cool.
There
What
you
the
me cry.
children- Cry! Let it out. What was amazing is for the children, learning about identity came easily and naturally. It was very thoughtful that children were able to make sense of how gender is often given at birth, but can change when the person is able to speak and decide for themselves. Children also became much more flexible about how they thought about clothing, hair length, makeup. By the end of their experience, the children comfortably said, if you want to know if someone is a him or her or they, you just need to ask. And you might make a mistake once in a while, but it's okay. We all make mistakes. What the teachers learned. Our staff had many long conversations about this experience, and we still are having these conversations. The biggest thing that we learned as teachers is that this really matters. Setting the foundation of understanding and acceptance has to happen at an early age. The children are already asking these questions. These conversations are already happening, whether or not you have an emergent curriculum study or not. These questions about gender, identity, and their roles that they play. It's a critical conversation as children become social beings. We also learned that even challenging conversations, all challenging conversations, can be made developmentally appropriate. The curriculum impact. Families and caregivers learn that children are highly capable of these complex ideas, understandings of their world, and can have complex conversations about many things. They also learn that their teachers are not afraid to take up challenging topics and bring them to light. Again, like Iris was saying, being humble, like we didn't get it right every time, and we did the research and we tried our best to make up for places that we did not know about or we had our own biases. Parents also commended us for being so available and understanding with all of their questions and concerns. A parent reported, these are some parent reports. A child was asked by their pediatrician if they knew their full name, and the child replied, my name is John or Jackie, he, him. An extracurricular event, a child was told that he would look funny if a boy wore a dress as an adult, or the adult told the child that it would look silly if they wore a dress, if this boy wore the dress. And the friend who had been a part of this study said, no, it wouldn't. You can wear whatever you want. A child asked their babysitter what pronoun they should use for them. A parent sent an email to a babysitter who identifies as non-binary and uses the pronoun they, them. The nanny replied in tears and gratitude and wanted to know more about this curriculum. Teachers reported that we noticed change in the classroom. Children were asking about character pronouns in books during story time like they had never done before. A larger variety of costumes were being used by a wider audience in dramatic play. For example, children were trying on costumes that they had never tried before and playing roles that they had otherwise said no to. Teachers noticed that storylines were more flexible. Friends were inviting other friends to play different roles. Children were using a variety of pronouns in their play. Small group play were engaging in more family and home life themes. Teachers were able to bring gender identity conversations naturally with materials unintended to be a part of the curriculum. For example, the book Gingerbread Girl, where the gingerbread has lots of little friends, and fruit stringing and snowflake making, lots of different ways to talk about diversity. Finally, the directorship role is critical. And this is a shout out to Iris Ponte. If our director, or if your directors, any director were to say this is too difficult, or we'll have too much pushback, or it will be too challenging with the group of children or the group of parents we're working with, it would be really hard to make this successful. If a director feels like something is too touchy or not acceptable, we would have missed out on this critical opportunity for our learners. And instead, it's important that we all step up to this challenge, that the directorship leads the way and says, we are doing this. It is something we have to, it's something we must do as educators. Support curriculum development efforts and help communicate clearly to families that we all participate in this dialogue. I'm so proud, so pleased, so humble to be a part of this school community. And I hope with educators on the call that you can help facilitate a similar type of conversation at your school to get this started and be supported in the way that I feel supported, and that I hope all educators feel supported in this. We can make long-lasting impacts.
Hi everyone, I'm Noah. Claire, I loved the anecdote about our experience, my experience visiting Henry Frost and working with the kids at your school. It was really lovely. So just to introduce myself, I'm a freelance artist. I graduated from Lesley's illustration program a few years ago, and I'm now working full-time as a children's book author and illustrator. I'm also a trans activist, by which I mean I use my lived experience as a trans person and my platform as an artist to advance the needs of my community and amplify voices fighting for change. So the work I'm going to talk about today relates to a picture book I illustrated called It Feels Good to Be Yourself, written by my colleague Teresa Thorne, which introduces the youngest reader to the concept of gender identity using language which is accessible and inclusive. So this book is essentially an introduction to gender education, which provides kids with the tools to talk about their gender identity and expression in an affirming space. So this is something I wish I had access to as a kid, which I said earlier, or which Claire told you earlier. I really illustrated this book because it's information which I wish I had access to at a younger age. It would have saved me a lot of trouble and trauma. And that's a driving force behind my work today, is putting resources into the world that I wish I could have given my younger self. So this is my younger self. This is baby me, excited about art and falling off my easel, which I feel is my constant state. Not much has changed. I'm still excited about art. I'm still falling off the metaphorical easel of life. And the theme of my talk is how can we use art and storytelling to empower children and ourselves. So I'm speaking about art and storytelling from the perspective of someone who makes picture books, but there are many other ways to incorporate art and storytelling into our lives and work, whether you consider yourself an artistic person or not. And I think this is especially important in the context of early childhood ed, because art and storytelling are things that tend to come more naturally to children and tend to be more of a challenge to adults. Which is why I'm going to ask you guys to do a tiny art making exercise today. Not right now, but a little bit later. Just to give you a heads up, I'm gonna ask you all to draw. You can go on to the next slide. So this is a photo from the workshop that I led at Henry Frost in January, which really and truly feels like years ago. That was a different lifetime. So this workshop included a reading of It Feels Good to Be Yourself, followed by an open conversation about gender identity. The kids had lots of insights and questions and statements. Mostly the way kids respond to this book is by like excitedly stating their gender, which I think is really adorable. And after that, we had a watercolor workshop in which I asked the kids to imagine the world they want to live in and then paint it. And some kids followed this prompt and some of them didn't. But either way, it was really beautiful to see the work they created. And it's always beautiful to witness children's ability to access their radical imagination and to imagine the world as a completely different place as it is now. Which is something that I think becomes harder as we age, and it's something that I want to work on with everyone today. So to get everyone in the headspace for accessing our radical imaginations and envisioning a more equitable future, I am going to take a short reading break and read you guys a passage from It Feels Good to Be Yourself. You can make my screen larger. I would recommend that so you can see the illustrations. But It Feels Good to Be Yourself by Teresa Thorne, illustrated by me. Oh wait, I skipped the first page. This is Ruthie. She's right here. She's a transgender girl. That means when she was born, everyone thought she was a boy until she got a little bit older, old enough to tell everyone she's actually a girl. Girl is Ruthie's gender identity. This is Ruthie's brother, Xavier. Xavier is a cisgender boy. That means when Xavier was born, everyone thought he was a boy. And as he grew older, it turned out everyone was right. He is a boy. Boy is Xavier's gender identity. There are so many different ways to be a boy or a girl, too many to fit in a book. But not everyone feels like a boy or a girl. Non-binary is a helpful word that can describe a kid who doesn't feel exactly like a boy or a girl. This is Ruthie's friend, Alex. Alex is both a boy and a girl. When Alex was born, everyone thought Alex was a girl, but Alex is both a boy and a girl. This is Alex's gender identity. This is Alex's friend, JJ. JJ is neither a boy nor a girl. Ever since JJ was very little, they never felt exactly like a boy or a girl. They just felt like themselves. This is JJ's gender identity. Alex and JJ are both non-binary. Just like there are many different ways to be a boy or a girl, there are many different ways to be non-binary. Too many to fit in a book. Some kids feel like girls. Some kids feel like boys. Some kids feel like a little bit of both, part boy, part girl. Some kids don't feel exactly like a boy or a girl. They feel like neither. And some kids feel like their gender identity isn't always the same. It's often changing. And even with all these different ways to be, some kids don't feel like any of the words they know fit them exactly right. That's because there are a never-ending number of ways to be yourself in the world. So that's all I'm going to read right now. Where did the PowerPoint go? There it is. Yeah, there are a never-ending number of ways to be yourself, too many to fit in a book. That's my favorite quote from the book, and it's really the underlying message. And this spread is one of my favorite spreads because it shows the act of creativity, the act of kids engaging in art making together to imagine a world that's different from the one we live in. So you can go on to the next slide. So I wanted to talk about art specifically and how it ties into activism. In order to make a change in the world, we must first be creative enough to envision that change and imagine what it will look like, how it will impact our community. We must have a vision that's legible enough to communicate it to others and compelling enough to inspire others to join us in taking action. In this way, making art about social change is an exercise in the radical imagination in which we must visualize the future we are fighting for and do it so beautifully that we inspire others to fight alongside us. So the five principles I wanted to highlight, what can we do with art? First, we can visualize what we cannot verbalize. This was extremely important to me as a kid because I did not know the words to I did not know the words to communicate my gender. I didn't know how to communicate that I was trans or that I felt like a boy. And so for me, it was really important that I was able to make pictures. And that was why art became such a transformative outlet in my life, because it was a way for me to communicate things that I had no words for. So the second one, visualize change, imagine and envision the world we want to live in. It's, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but once we decide which change we want to make in the world, portraying that visually and engaging that part of our brain is an important step in moving from an idea to a more comprehensive picture of what we want our future to look like. So the next one, shift from wanting change towards creating change. Creativity sparks action. The verb create, raising our voices and taking action, is really the active part of advocating for a better future, is that we are using our voices and using our creativity to take steps in that direction instead of just thinking or talking about what we want. The fourth one, exercise the radical imagination or visionary work. So this is a phrase that I've been throwing around a lot. The radical imagination is something that's been written about by a lot of activists and sociologists, but for the purpose of today, I would define it as the ability to imagine our world, our lives, and the systems that shape them, not as they are, but as they might otherwise be. And this is something that comes naturally to children. It's not just about dreaming of different futures, dreaming of equity and liberation. It's also finding ways to actualize those dreams by bringing those possibilities back to the present to inspire action we can take today towards building that better future. So this is visionary work, which is the heartbeat of any social movement. For example, when we talk about abolishing the police or abolishing prisons, we have to exercise that radical imagination to rethink what our world might look like if policing and carceral punishment were replaced by things like safety and networks of accountability and community care. So the last one, externalize our dreams. My work is very based in dreaming. It's based in exercising my imagination to imagine a world that's very different from the one that we live in. But the practice of sharing a dream is not just fantasy, it's also sharing your hopes for the future, and it brings it closer to actuality. You can go ahead and turn to the next slide. The possibilities are endless. And there's another spread of kids working together, using art, using their imaginations to create something new. You can go ahead and advance. Sorry about all the hammering. I lived in a very noisy neighborhood. Yeah, so I'm going to do a quick lane switch just for a moment before we start the art activity and talk about a project I was involved in organizing recently at Lesley through Lesley's Office of Community Engagement, which puts these principles into practice. So this project engaged kids and adults, a community of all ages, in the renovation of the Foundry building in East Cambridge as a community space. It was about exercising our imaginations and working together to imagine a new space for community care here in Boston. So you can see that there is a sticker and it says, "I wish this was blank." So this is a public art project developed by Candy Chang, who is an artist based in New Orleans. And this project was inspired in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina by the limited dynamics of community meetings to deal with the crisis, as well as the volume of abandoned buildings. And Candy Ching developed these stickers and posted thousands of them all over abandoned buildings in New Orleans. And the idea was to invite residents of the city to share their hopes for the future for these spaces and the needs of their community. So the response was amazing. The responses ranged from functional needs to dreams and poetics. And the project became a part of the 2012 Venice Biennale. And since then, it's been recreated in cities around the world. So this was our creation of Candy Ching's I Wish This Was project here in Boston. And you can see a few of the responses that were posted on the Foundry building, which was renovated by a community team, which was taking in these public responses and taking them into the programming of the building. So you can see it says, I wish this was a space for community regardless of their income. I wish this was a place where anyone could make and show artwork. I wish this was affordable housing. I wish this was a livable workspace for artists. I wish this was a point of synergy. And those were just a few of the responses that we got. But I just wanted to share that as a way or an example in our local community of using art to engage the public in activism and to set change in motion. So without further ado, I'm gonna ask you guys to draw. This activity is about the power of visualization. I have my sketchbook here. I'm going to be drawing too. So I'm just going to ask you all to take these 3 steps. The first step is think about one change you want to make in your life. This could be your personal life, your local community, or the world at large. And I'm drawing on Adrienne Marie Brown's emergent strategy, which upholds that the personal impacts the interpersonal, which impacts the local and then the global. I find it's easiest to start envisioning changes in our personal lives, but whatever scale you want to imagine your change at, just do what feels right to you. Once you've decided on your change, write it down. You can share it into the chat if you want to. If you don't want to, that's also fine. And using whatever supplies you have available, if you have a pen and paper, just spend 5 minutes drawing. What will it look like? Picture what this future could be. And we're also going to play the music of Alistair Mook in the background while we do this little drawing exercise together.
So, what is a leader? So a leader is somebody who takes charge and makes a path on doing the right thing and leads others down that path of doing the right thing. What is a leader? What does a leader do? Oh, what is a leader? What does leading mean to you? If a leader walked into the room, would you know it right away? What would they look like? What would they talk like? What would a leader say? What is a leader? What does a leader do? Oh, what is a leader? What does leading mean to you? Someone who leads, stands up, and shows the way. Yeah, someone who helps people. Who are the leaders you've heard of? Where did you learn their names? Does a leader need to be famous? Can you lead if you don't have fame? What is a leader? What does a leader do? Oh, what is a leader? What does leading mean to you? A leader is somebody who takes responsibility for a group of people they're working with and leads that group of people to success. Is a leader a man or a woman? Are they LGBTQ? What color positive, like they have to be able to remain positive in some situations, and they have to be inspiring and kind. Should a leader do what they're told to do? If what they're told to do is not right. If a leader sees a wrong somewhere, should they run or stay and fight? What is a leader? What does a leader do? Oh, what is a leader? What does leading mean to you? Oh, what is a leader? What does a leader do? Oh, what is a leader? Could a leader be? A leader is somebody who stands in the front and watch. Like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. Some people that started in the back of the bus to started up and hoped for justice. Two little eyes stand from a crib. A tiny little mouse drooling on the bed. A tiny little fish with a tiny little grin. Before they grew up, everybody was a kid. Malcolm X was a kid. Dr. King was a kid. Muhammad Gandhi was a kid. The Dalai Lama was a kid. Before they got tall, before they grew big, they used to be small. Everybody was a kid. You are a kid. You got dirt on your hands. You wipe them on your shirt. Yeah, you wipe them on your pants. But one of these days, you're gonna get real. How do I know? 'Cause everybody was a kid. So where you gonna go? And what you gonna do? Who you gonna be? We're waiting on you. We're holding our breath, and our lips are all big. Because we all know everybody was a kid. Oprah Winfrey was a kid, and Angelina Jolie, even Bill Gates and Muhammad Ali. Before they got known, before we knew what they did, before they got grown, everybody was a kid.
I think that's been 5 minutes. So if anyone wants to share what they wrote or what they drew, I did a few drawings leading up to this, but I drew free healthcare, including mental health crisis care. There's like an emergency counselor coming to the rescue to save someone who's in a mental health crisis. And I also drew free college and no cops. That was what I wanted to manifest right now. But if anyone wants to share the changes that they chose to brainstorm, feel free to do so.
It's scary to show artwork after you, Noah, but here's mine. I've been thinking a lot about voting and making time to get people to vote that might otherwise not. And this is my vote to change the world. And thinking about no more hate and finding peace and making time to make change, to protect, honor, and love each other.
It's so cute, Iris.
I'm not an artist, but I like to have fun.
Okay, ready? I was stuck for at least 3 of the minutes, and I said, oh my gosh, we have 5 minutes. And then I got me thinking about what is 5 minutes. So we all have 5 minutes, and if we practice taking 5 minutes for yourself, taking 5 minutes for your partner, 5 minutes for your children, 5 minutes for your dog, cat, 5 minutes for the bushes outside to tend to your garden or something, then you get all these 5 minutes and you grow in this tree, and then you get to collect the 5 minutes later when you see the growth that maybe spending just 5 minutes on something for well-being.
I love that. That's so meta.
Collect all the 5 minutes in your basket.
That's beautiful. I love the way your brain works.
Thank you.
Well, that is about the end of my section of the presentation, but I'm imagining that you all made beautiful little 5-minute drawings, which we can't share because we don't have the capacity to show everyone's video. But I hope this was helpful. And maybe it's an exercise that you want to try with your kids, your students, whatever feels right for you.
Thanks so much, Noah. And then if you advance the next slide, for you, we have prepared some resources, some references, because I can see in the chat, people are asking about the upcoming publication, and I put it out there in the chat box for people to retrieve. But these are also a lot of books that we recommend if you're curious where we turn when parents have questions, when other academics, directors, professionals ask, well, where are the resources for us? Here is my best of set for you, and you can screenshot that. I'll give you a second. This presentation will also be made public and available, so it won't just disappear. And then on the next slide, for all of you educators out there, if you don't have these books in your library, we highly recommend that you borrow them from your local library, request them. If parents are saying, wow, teachers, you're holding up the world right now, you can turn around and say, you know what would really help our classroom? How about some of these books in your Amazon wish list for your school? This is a great starter set that just cover a variety of topics in such a developmentally appropriate way that we have enjoyed over time in our school. And we hope, even if you're a parent at home, this is a great set of books to request from the library or to purchase for your family. And then, of course, on the next slide, here's us. We're really grieving that we can't see your faces, that we can't see your reaction, that we can't have more of a conversation, but we would actually love to see those drawings, hear from you. And these are our direct line emails. So there we are. We're very reachable and open. It might take us a little while to respond, but we would definitely like to hear about your work, how this presentation has impacted you, if it made you think about things that you hadn't considered before, or honestly, if you felt like something was lacking and that you wanted to hear more about something else. We are hoping to give this talk again, post-pandemic, in person, to reach more educators. So all feedback is welcome. And finally, a really special thank you to Alistair Mook. Oh, can you just toggle back for a second? Toggle back. At the bottom there's a link to Mook Music. Check it out. Amazing. He is such a generous singer-songwriter. You can follow him on Facebook. He has live concerts for your family. This album is spectacular. It is up for a Grammy, and Alistair is local. And I can't say enough about his singer-songwriter abilities. It's just the kind of music we need right now in our lives. And last but not least, let's open up for some questions. I saw some people asking about Henry Frost, so I provided a link to our school in the chat. You can just Google Henry Frost. You can look us up, see photos, see what the deal is over here. We're happy to answer any and every question you might have about life. And if we don't know the answer, we will find out or think about it and get back to you as well. So you can submit questions, and then I think our friend Yvonne is going to help organize us to do the Q&A part of this presentation. I hear a buzzing, but I'm not sure what it is. Does everyone hear that?
I'm hearing weird feedback.
Okay.
I think, Dana, maybe there's something with your mic.
Okay, let's try it this way. I was going to say,
That's much better.
if you wanted to step in and just share any questions that we wanted to share with our speakers, I would just want to make sure we get everything from the chat.
Would you like me to stop sharing my screen?
Sure, we can take down the slides at this point since we can just talk from here. Oh, I see a question coming in from Sonia saying, how do you recommend starting an equity committee? I think it's always tricky to start things, and I can kick off the response to this. I think you have to find people around you who are also invested. And then from there, you start to talk about what are your goals? What is it that you want to achieve? And starting off with small things, I recommend before you go too big. And you want to pull people from different parts of your school community. You want a representative teacher, staff, parent. And I've seen equity committees that even involve children, depending on the age range in your schools, to take part in what is their vision for the trajectory of the program they're in. What is the shortcomings? Where can there be improvement? And it can be a simple once a month gathering of those interested people, and you'll be surprised how quickly it will grow. And from there, it's making sure that the mission of the group is clear and that you find goal points along the way to achieve.
I think we have Yvonne unmuted right now, so I just wanted to check in. Are there any questions that we've missed?
Oh, I was just going to say that I think you answered all the questions that was in the chat box.
Trying to be multitasking and efficient. I think, well, I'll bring up a question that has come up in previous talks and in our experience, and then I would love for Claire and Noah to chime in. I think on paper, when we give presentations like this, it looks so clean. It looks so beautiful and easy. And I wanted to speak from my perspective as a director. And Claire, I really appreciate that shout out, but I also want to be honest that when you are confronted with a choice in your program and the children bring to light something that typically isn't part of my lived academic experience or might not be something that's easily received by your community, i.e., how do we talk about gender identity with 3 to 5-year-olds? I want to be transparent and say there's a moment where I feel inside like, oh gosh, how am I going to do this? Like, how is this going to be received by parents? Are they going to get upset? Am I going to get a whirlwind of upset emails and people who are not okay with this? What are we opening up? And why can't I just talk about zoo animals or, you know, stay safe over here and make pumpkin paintings in the fall? And there's been a lot of times where I have to tell myself that the easy way is not the okay way anymore. And it's really important as a leader in a program to remind yourself that you are responsible for running a business that has people who are in your program, that you can pay your teachers and carry the school in a safe economic way, but that doesn't always mean pleasing everybody or making sure everybody's happy. Often, sometimes when you create a space of trust and really start to push a little bit, the conversations and the way you do it and the way it unfolds can become very beautiful and deeply meaningful and grow the investment of the community twofold. So in modeling taking risks, in modeling asking the hard questions, you can become a guiding light to those opportunities and the experiences, not just for the children, but for the staff and for other professionals in your field and the parents and families. I want to share with you that it doesn't always go smoothly. In my career, there have been moments where people are not okay with things that we're doing in the school, and you make sure your door is always open, that you listen with respect to their perspective and where the discourse is coming from, where potentially the fear or the trauma is coming from, and that you receive it with an open heart. Now, with that said, there have been moments, not in my current school, but previously, where you reach an impasse, where your values and goals for your program are not in line with the families. And that is when, at the end of the day, Claire stated that the schools in the end have to decide. You have to decide which direction you're going to move and which direction you're going to hold the light. And that is why the mission statement is critical, because on paper, when people join your school community, they know up front what you stand for and what you are going to stand by in those moments. So I can't emphasize enough to you how important it is to review your mission statements, your philosophy, how important it is for your environment to honor what you stand for. And it was only 2 years ago we put up our safe space sign, not because I didn't believe in it, just because I didn't think of it. And those indicators are critical for open house, for the way you talk with families and the way you advertise your programs. And so I really think that we do need to take a stance, and it needs to be an anti-bias stance, but I don't want anyone to walk away from this thinking it's easy. It's hard work. You're going to have to confront a lot of your own stuff in this and be transparent and honest about it and really listen to each other.
Iris, we have a couple of other questions coming in.
Sure.
One from Magina. I really appreciate you sharing this excellent example of anti-bias work. How have you been able to continue this work during COVID? Any advice for remote learning situations?
Hi, Magina. Teacher Claire, you want to chime in?
Sure. So, well, right now we are on site or in person, and we are definitely taking it a day at a time. This is such big unpacking work to do that we really do try to keep each day having a thread of some anti-bias curriculum involvement. So when we are planning our week out, that there's some thread that we're carrying through, whether it's through nature, whether it's through the topic that we're in right now. We're in a curriculum where we're moving continents as a part of our study of exploration completely outside. But when we were remote, a lot of our communication with parents, like we were sending emails almost weekly about the types of materials we were hoping children could find in their own house, trying to be equitable about what different kids have in their homes. We were sending packages to make sure that children had what they needed to attend some of those remote learning experiences. We also wanted to be cognizant that not everyone has the same types of materials or internet applications at home. So for preschool application, we had 2 times a day. We were trying to be live, or at least some pre-recorded something for our preschool students. But it has been something that we've had to remind ourselves about while we're making curriculum. Like the other day, for example, Iris, remind me, we didn't have the right types of materials, we only had a set of children that were all white, for example.
Mhm.
And we wanted to share it with other children in the class, and we put it out, and we immediately both kind of went to it and we're like, we can't put this out. We need diverse set in this set. We're putting this away until we find the diverse set. And same with the exploring online, the books that we were choosing, the resources, really finding a lot of places have made their services available to remote learners right now. So really seeking out those places that also have an anti-bias philosophy that you can extend to your learners.
I think I would add, just by nature of COVID, our school, just to mention, is completely outdoors except for use of the bathroom and the sink. And this is a huge shift for our entire school. So we had to shift gears into becoming a complete outdoor school, which we've never done before. And part of that decision also rested in our community's feelings around mitigation of COVID and ventilation and children's needs to want to be free in nature and release some of that energy. And in unpackaging that and in preparing the regulations for our schools functioning this year, there were a lot of conversations with families about expectations around mask wearing, vaccines. And it's funny that we're talking about anti-bias curriculum. This is part of it. There's a huge spectrum of emotions in our families. I'm sure all of you are nodding in how people think about how we keep each other safe and the choices we make daily and how we mitigate this community spread. Well, in a school community, that spectrum exists as well. And you better be close and have trust with your school community to move forward, to create a space that's safe and fun and joyful. And so part of our decision making in those conversations with our school board, with parents, with our staff, we had to make a decision together about how then shall we create a school amidst a pandemic that we all feel happy and safe in. That is anti-bias work, because there's a range of emotions about when and who should be wearing masks and where, and behaviors. So that is, part of our anti-bias work that we are working on every single day. And I'm so proud of our community in this time. It has not been easy. And I'm sure all of you, for people who are in the front lines in this space, we have never, ever expected to be put in these positions. But at the same time, I see the children enter. Today was day 30, and we celebrated and we cheered and we danced. 30 days open, full operation, and our community is healthy and well. And we don't stop emphasizing that, because even with the range of opinions about the use of masks and spaces, we have found a way to commit to each other as a community, even when everyone doesn't agree, to sign a document that says, this is how I will behave so I can be a part of this community because I care about you. And we might not all agree, but we're going to adhere to this because we want our school to stay open.
Iris, you have another question from
Sure.
Tim.
See if could you talk about the time duration of your identity study? How much time passed? Oh, I don't think it started around October, right, Teacher Claire? And then we started into it from there, doing the research in October. It took about 2 weeks to really get the access to the research in the books. And then we wrote to NOAA, and then letter I came. So that must have been around November, December, right? We hit letter I usually. We do this ABC wall weekly. So that's got to be around there. And then by the time Noah came to school, it was close to MLK. Noah, what was it, February?
I think it was January.
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 And then, yeah, it just kept going. I mean, it's not that only that one strand was going and we did nothing else but talk about, I need to be clear. It wasn't like, hi, welcome to Henry Frost. Now we're going to keep talking about identity for month 3. It's not like that. It's just one piece of the conversation that's ongoing. Children have access to a wide range of choices constantly. It's not like everything they played with was a rainbow or something having to do with gender identity. That's not the way our classrooms are set up. There's a lot of choices on a lot of different shelves that are just fun and important for just everyday experiences in school with the strand moving through. And that conversation is still going. Our children stay in one classroom for up to 3 years. So these experiences that we shared with you were close to the time of the curriculum, but they continue on. We have children still going to checkups, telling physicians, please call me he, him, them, they. It's just part of our school fabric now. And when children have the costume bin come out, the comments like, don't wear that, that's for a girl. Don't wear that, that's for a boy. I've noticed that the older children who were here for this experience are passing the torch to the new children and modeling it for them. So there's this beautiful overlay of experiences where they're doing the work for us now. We just needed to get the ball rolling and then continue to support those efforts, which is really beautiful to watch. So these things are going, but that's a great question. We don't really do anything at Henry Frost that's that sequence. Things just kind of go on, but there might be a big push off.
I had one question I wanted to pose for you all that I feel like I hear a lot from teachers. When you're in that moment, when you've been confronted by a parent, an administrator, and at least for me as a teacher, the face gets hot and can you talk through a little bit about how you and your practice move through that moment?
Go, teacher Claire, you're ready. I see it.
I was gonna say my ears get hot. That's the first indication. I've learned one trick, and if my body language, if my body language is calm and my body language is open, my expression and my understanding of the lens of through someone else's lens kind of follows. I learned really quickly, like if I have arms like this, I'm going to have that kind of attitude. So almost having my arms at the back. This is really like simple. So step one, teacher Claire, is to find that calm energy, and also start with a lens from it's for the child. Has been a big talk for me to talk down that red face and the red ears is parents are their first educator. And when I have that perspective and that calm of like, I want to hear where you're coming from so that I can understand you and your child better, because that's my main goal, right? As their educator, is to understand that child and bring that child along this journey. I can combat my own defensiveness, my own biases, my own sort of first inclinations, and to really hear, to really listen to what they have to say. And I know those are more practical suggestions. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question as I'm rolling in this, but practically hearing and listening with a calm energy has helped me get through some of those difficult conversations, to not jump to any judgment.
I think that's great. And it's for all of us, I think we come to our work because of the love and we are fix-it sort of nature. And I know for me, I'm still working on slowing down, and that I don't have to fix it right away. I don't have to do something right away or make everyone okay right away. You just have to receive it and then bring it back to the team and say, well, this parent brought this up today and it really caught me off guard. And I've been really thinking about this. What do you think that meant? And how can I circle back? And it's okay to take a breath, especially now. Everyone, I think, is very reactionary. It doesn't take much to tip over and start hysterically crying or get angry. I've seen it on the road. People are just unhinged right now, especially in our area. Parents are dropping off sort of. Some mornings people are smiling and other mornings people just look crazed. And to constantly remember how hard this is, and just to take a minute, just take a breath and wait and circle back and say, hey, today I wish I had said X to you, or I saw that you were, and I heard you say, and I'm curious, that phrase, I'm curious. Can you tell me more about what you meant or what you were thinking? Can you tell me what experience you've had or what you're worried about so I can be with you in this? And when you turn it like that, it's not combative. It's not, let me tell you how it's going to be. It's more, let me come beside you. We're in this and this is tricky. I've never thought about this before. And suddenly it changes the dynamic of opposition to alliance, and it's an art. And I know my staff's gonna laugh that's on this call, but I have this special place that I call my back.
Oh God.
Listen, and there's moments sometimes when crazy comes out of people. Like we see these people more than some of their most intimate family members or aunts or uncles, and they say things to you and you're like, did this just happen? And sometimes I have to go away. I go to this place where I can just be calm in a hammock with a nice glass of lemonade and a candle. And I'm like, stay, Iris, just stay calm. Don't lose it. I know, don't show crazy eyes, don't cross your arms, just stay in the hammock for a second. Something else is going on here in this parent's experience or this staff member's time, and just stay, wait, because I have to do that, because if I don't, I'm so reactionary that I need to hold myself in that space. So then I am more emotionally prepared and do what I really actually want to do as a response to whatever's coming at me. And I've noticed that if I don't react combatively, the other person, if they're coming in at a combative mode, suddenly is like, combative, it's not working. She's in the hammock. Here I come. Okay, swing with me. Are we having our drinks together now? Good, stay. And I'm not saying I always do this perfectly, but try it. It's a happier place to be. For any other directors on this call, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When the crazy comes in and the child is right there, you need to model for everybody. We're good. Let's go. All right. It's hard. The traffic was terrible. Stay with me now. And you'll be surprised at how it changes the whole emotional experience of people that are not happy. And it might not have anything to do with you. I hope that wasn't too out there for you.
That was fantastic. Thank you very much. I developed my own hammock. Well, we wanted, oh, did I miss any more questions here? I think we've got them all. Okay. Well, we just wanted to close by thanking you all for this incredible webinar and window into your practice. I feel like now more than ever, it's critical to know that this work is possible, that it's really happening, and that change can happen, and that the work that we do every day is part of that change. Thank you so much for your leadership, for sharing your knowledge, and just spending time with us this evening. It was inspiring, and I feel lucky to have been in your presence virtually. I'm going to just turn this over to Marianne Adams with the Center for Advanced Professional Studies at Lesley, just to close our evening with a bit about the Early Childhood Innovation Certificate Program, and also for the hand for our speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I was really pleased to be able to be part of this series last year when we were, ironically last year when we were not remote. I wasn't able to attend, and this year I tried to keep the slides going best as I could. But I wanted to make sure that you all knew that we have a new Innovations in Early Childhood Certificate Program. I work for the Center for Advanced Professional Studies, and this is an offering that we are bringing out this year for the first time. We began it this fall with the Pedagogy of Play. I'm not sure if any of you are involved in that course, but we are offering the courses as both professional development and as graduate credit. And there's this incredible flexibility that the team, the early childhood team at Lesley, has put into this certificate, where there are some really nice core courses and then a lot of options to kind of fill your personal professional practice with the kind of material that you need, the kind of training or advanced professional work that you are really want to bring to it to make you take you to the next step as an educator. And in this January, we're going to be running environments and materials in Reggio inspired teaching and learning. And Louise Caldwell, who is this wonderful author and early childhood educator, is going to be running that course over 6 Saturdays in the winter. And if you're interested in that, just be in touch with us, any of us, especially Dana or Iris, who are part of the program, and they'll get the word to me. I don't know if anybody else who is involved in the creation of the certificate wants to say anything. We really put it together based on feedback from the field, and so are hoping that it's going to give you all what it is that you are looking for in the future.
I think just briefly, I don't want to keep people, the intention behind the certificate program is to really look at Reggio practices and innovative practices in emergent curriculum with young children, and to give teachers the strategies and the support to learn through materials, through environment, through observation, documentation, to really connect people with those practices, and then overall to see how those practices are connected to anti-bias practice as a whole when we position children as citizens and this work as community-based practice through citizenship. So really thinking about all of those different pieces, we were really hoping to bring that kind of work to our program at Lesley, and we're just thrilled to be having this new program. And thank you everyone so much for being here this evening. We know everyone is strung out and working like crazy, and we just really appreciate you being with us tonight. Thanks everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody, this was amazing.
Love you all virtually. Keep carrying that torch.
Hey, good job, team. That was great.
Thank you, Marianne, for all your tech support. It was a huge help.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I had all these things going on, but it worked out all right, I felt like. So thank you for your script. And
Of course.
yeah. All right, well, I will see you all the next time around, because I think I'm insinuated into this reality.
Got it. I think you're ready.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Michael, thank you for all your help.
Yeah.
Dana,
that
thanks
was
for
great.
everything.
Yeah.
Someday we can all be together again. Let's go in the real hammocks and relax.
Yeah.
Thank you too.
Okay,
Wow.
bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone. We really appreciate it.
I'm interested if some